So have you ever said yes to something, even though every part of you wanted to say no? And maybe you said yes because you didn't want to seem difficult or appear ungrateful or uncooperative, or maybe you didn't want someone to be upset with you. Well, by the end of this video, you're going to understand why saying yes can actually drain your confidence and what your saying no actually communicates. And also how to set boundaries in a way that will strengthen your relationships and not damage them. Hi, I'm Leezá Steinorf. I work with Fortune 500 companies, state and local governments, leaders across industries worldwide. And I help people navigate communication, leadership, and conflict with clarity and with confidence. And I want to start here because people who struggle to say no are literally often some of the most responsible, capable people in the room. But they have a pattern going. Okay? So if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. And if these conversations are helping you think differently about how you show up or how you can use your mastery in the world, liking or subscribing helps other people find them too. All right, so let's get down to it. You don't say yes because you want to. All right, we already said that. You say yes because it feels safer. For whatever reason. And there's nothing wrong with that. Please, I encourage you not to judge yourself for doing this because we're going to take it apart in a way that you can actually change it for yourself. So you say yes because it's safer, because you don't want to disappoint, or you don't want to create tension, or maybe you don't want to be labeled, as I said earlier, as difficult or not cooperating. So you take another task and you stretch yourself even thinner. And then you tell yourself, I'll figure it out. But over time, what actually happens is something very subtle, is you start to feel resentful. And in any case, you're going to start to feel tired. And eventually you feel disconnected from your work, from other people, those very people that you're saying yes to, and also from yourself, which is the biggest impact. So the question becomes, why does saying no feel like a threat instead of a skill, which is what it is? So for many people, saying no is tangled up with fear. That's why it feels so risky, right? We're afraid that, and it probably comes from when we were younger. When we were told to do something, we weren't given an option, so we just had to do it. So now when people ask us, we just have to do it, or we have to say yes, right? So we may have developed a fear of conflict. If I don't say yes, we're going to get into an argument, right? Or maybe it's fear of rejection, that if I say no, they're going to just dismiss me, and it's over, either in a professional sense or in a personal sense. Or maybe it's afraid of being seen as selfish, like you can't actually take care of yourself. You can't actually say no to something and prioritize what's important to you, right? Does any of that sound familiar? But here's what's important to note. When you avoid saying no, you do not avoid consequences. You either postpone them, or I'm going to say you exchange them for different consequences. Yeah? So you may be saying yes to avoid conflict, let's say, but the consequence you may have then is frustration or dissatisfaction. Long-term, maybe it turns into burnout because you just have done it too often, right? And relationships then are built on unclear expectations because somebody doesn't know. They don't know that you don't want to do it because you're saying yes. How are they going to know that? Right? So we've groomed ourselves to respond a certain way, and then we get frustrated with people for asking us stuff, but we're the ones that keep saying yes. So the next question becomes, if saying yes is costing you clarity and ease, what is saying no actually meant to protect? Okay? So, and I've spoken about boundaries again, and I'm sure it won't be the last time I'm doing it either. They are not walls. It's not stopping something from coming in like an ultimatum, and you're not rejecting anyone. Boundaries are information. You're educating, you're informing. You're telling people, this is what I can do well. This is what I can take on right now. And in order to work with me long term, in order for this to be sustainable, this is how I need it to show up. That's it. That's setting boundaries. So the clearer you are in your energy management, in your goals, and in your value system, the easier it is to inform other people of what you do want and what you don't want and how to manage that. And you're not making anybody wrong in that, and you're also not putting up walls between yourselves in relationship, right? You're actually enabling other people to know you more and to work with you and to be engaged with you in a way that serves your needs and also allows you to serve what it is that they need. So when boundaries are clear, resentment actually decreases. And what grows then is trust, because those people know that you're going to tell them the truth. If you say yes, it's because you mean it and you can. And if you say no, it's because that's clear. You're not going to do it. Not now. Maybe not at all. And they can rely on that. And so the relationship that you're in, professionally or personally, it becomes more honest, not less honest. And that leads us to the next question. How do you say no without burning bridges, right? You can do that. It's very simple. Saying no you don't have to justify it. And I know a lot of people are like, well, and they give a whole litany. I have this and I did that. And when you asked me last time, and they go through this whole story. You don't need to justify and you don't need to apologize, but you need to be clear. Okay? So clarity sounds something like, I don't have the capacity to do that well right now. Period. You don't have to go on. Or I can take this on, but not by that deadline. Are you flexible? Or I want to do this thoughtfully, and right now that's just not possible. Yeah, I don't have the time or capacity. Simple. So do you notice what's missing in those examples? No defensiveness. As I said, you're not over-explaining, and you're also not judging yourself. Oh, I wish I could, and I'm always so short-handed, and I can't do it well. So when you communicate this way, you're not being difficult. You're actually being dependable. You're informing the other person where you stand and what they can rely on from you. And that's powerful. That's actually how you build relationship. And that leads to the next question. What actually changes when people know what they can expect from you? Whew, that's huge. I mean, just think about the relationships that you're in, whether it's in your professional field or in your private field, your social field. Think of the people you know you can rely on, and also the ones you know you can't. And that's what we're talking about here. Because when your yes means yes, and your no means no, then people understand that they can trust you, right? They know that your word, you've considered it, you're listening to what their needs are, but you're also estimating what your own abilities are at the moment, and you give an answer that they can rely on. So they know that your limits are real, and they know that when you do commit, that you follow through, because you've considered it and you have the ability, and now you're committed to getting it done. And that's also how confidence grows, like within yourself. It doesn't happen through trying to please other people, because you're actually going against the grain of what it is that you need. But when you stand in what you need for your values, for your energy levels, for your abilities, time framing, whatever it is, when you stand in that and you answer and you act and you engage from that place, either saying yes or saying no, you build that self-esteem. Yeah? Not through pleasing, but through consistency. And consistency is one of the, in my opinion, one of the most underrated leadership skills that there is. Because when you are consistent, when people know that no matter what, they can rely on you, boy, that goes a long way. They'll really go anywhere with you. And if you've never read or heard anything about Shackleton, do yourself the favor. Shackleton, who took a expedition to the South Pole, gosh, I think it was in the late 1800s, might even have been in the 1700s, I'm not sure. In any case, his leadership example is profound because of this. One of the reasons was that consistency. People knew absolutely they could depend on him. And in that case, their lives depended on him. Okay? All right. So let's bring it all together. If you can't or don't want to keep saying yes to everything, that does not mean you're failing, and it doesn't mean that you're not good enough and you can't do it all, because you can't do it all. Nobody can do it all. Not for long and not well. Okay? So, if you are starting to say no at times, it means that you are noticing your limits, and your limits are not weaknesses. They're information. So saying no isn't about pushing people away. It's about staying connected to yourself and to them without losing anything. It's very grounded. Yeah? And so I invite you in the chat box to write down one thing, just one thing that you consistently say yes to when you really would like to say no. And choose one area to practice with. Listen to this again. And then give yourself the opportunity to say no from clarity and from stability and without judgment and without justification. All right? So if this helped you rethink maybe boundaries, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who's been also maybe challenged with this. And in the next conversation, we're going to talk about what happens when responsibility suddenly shifts. Like you're going along, you're doing your thing, and now you're put in charge and everyone's looking at you. Okay? What are you going to do? Because leadership doesn't start with the answers. It actually starts with awareness, and that's what we're going to talk about. All right. Thanks for listening. Be well.